Audiobook Academy Biography presents Moliere. French playwright Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, better known as Moliere, is most renowned for his scathing comedies that ridiculed the high society of his day. One of the all-time greats of French satire, he was both a screenwriter and a comedian. A representative of classicism, Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, better known as Moliere, was a comedic writer of his period who focused on mocking the social mores of his time. He was primarily concerned with racial bias, aristocratic corruption, and the hypocrisy of the clergy during this time period. On top of that, he was despised in some quarters. François Truffaut was one of the greatest French comics, screenwriters and writers, as well as one of Western culture's best-loved literary figures. Childhood and education. On January 15, 1622, Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, better known as Moliere, was born in Paris. His parents, Jean Poquelin and Marie Crusset, belonged to a well-to-do bourgeois family, and he grew up in that environment. After the death of his mother at the age of 10, it appears that he has not developed a close bond with his father. The Pavillon des Singes in Paris's aristocratic Rue Saint-Honoré was where he and his father lived after his mother's death. Before enrolling in the Collège de Clermont, the elite Jesuit College de Clermont, he was likely educated in Parisian primary schools. At the King Louis XIII court in 1631, Jean Poquelin purchased the position of personal servant of the king's court and keeper of carpets and wallpaper, valet de chambre ordinaire et tapissier du roi. In 1641, his son assumed the same role. The title was created in under 3 months, at a cost of $1,200. Many profitable contracts could be secured as a result of the position's yearly salary of $300,000. Poquelin enrolled in law school to become a provincial lawyer around 1642, most likely in Orléans, but no record exists of his graduation. Moliere had been following his father's plan up until that point, socializing with the nobility at the Collège de Clermont, and looking like a shoo-in for an office job. Career as an author. When Moliere was just 21 years old, he decided to leave the upper echelons of society and pursue a career on the stage. The actor Madeleine Béjart, with whom he had previously met, joined him in founding the Théâtre Illustre Théâtre after he left his father. Madeleine's brother and sister also joined them later. During the year 1645, the new theatre company went bankrupt. Moliere rose to the position of group leader in part due to his acting prowess and in part due to his legal expertise. The organization had to pay 2,000 francs to hire a theatre, which led to significant indebtedness. Moliere spent only 24 hours in prison before he was released, and historians aren't sure if his father or the lover of one of the group's members paid the debts. From that, he began writing under the alias Moliere, which he may have taken after a little midi settlement of the same name near Le Vigan in southern France. That name change may have been done to spare his father from humiliation over having an actor in his family. Actors were no longer belittled by the state under Louis XIV, but they were still not allowed to be buried on holy ground. The tour lasted about 12 years, during which time he first performed in Charles Dufresne's troupe and later founded his own group, which was successful enough to gain the sponsorship of Philip I, Duke of Orléans. After closing the theatre, he and Madeleine embarked on a new theatrical tour of the province. However, only 2 plays from Moliere's time have survived, Les Tourtis, ou Le Contretemps and Le Docteur Lamoureux, in which the French playwright demonstrated his mastery of satire while distancing himself from the Italian improvisation commedia dell'arte. He met Armando, Prince Conti, governor of Languedoc, during his travels and he became his sponsor and named the group after himself. When Conti, who was suffering from syphilis, turned to religion in an attempt to heal himself, their friendship came to an end. As a result, the Parti des Devets and the Compagnie de Saint-Sacrement, Moliere's 2 main theatrical rivals, persuaded him to stop supporting him and instead form their own organizations. While in Lyon, the Marquise Thérèse de Gorla, became a member of the group. The Marquise courted Pierre Corneille unsuccessfully and eventually became Jean Racine's mistress. When Racine offered Moliere his tragedy Théâtre et Chariclée, one of his first works after abandoning his studies in religion, Moliere refused, while supporting Racine's creative career. When Moliere learnt that the Hôtel de Bourgogne theatre group had accepted Racine's offer to perform his tragedy, it is widely believed that Moliere became enraged. Moliere had no choice but to appear in Paris. He had to leave town for a few weeks at the beginning while he built up his name among the nobility and in Paris. His first visit to Paris, in 1658, saw him perform Corneille's tragedy Nicomede in front of the king in the Louvre, which was then rented as a theatre, with some success. As a result, he was given the honorary title Troupe de Monsieur. Monsieur was an honorary title for the king's brother, Philip I, Duke of Orléans. Commedia dell'arte troupe di Barrio Fiorelli, known as Scaramouche, shared the Petit Bourbon Hall's Great Hall with Monsieur's group, allowing Scaramouche and his troupe to perform together. There were separate performances for each group. On November 18, 1659, the premiere of Les Précieuses Ridicules, Funny Capers, was held in Petit Bourbon. The play was Moliere's first attempt at satirizing French social norms and attitudes. Samuel Chapuzot's 1656 Le Cercle des Femmes is widely believed to be the inspiration for the story. Time, action, and verse style should all be kept in sync, according to the Académie. The expression castigat ridendo mores or criticizes customs through humor originated by Jean de Saint-Oil and is commonly misunderstood to be a Latin proverb. Moliere is typically connected with this phrase. Illustre Théâtre was an attempt at achieving perfection in tragedy, but he became famous for his farces, which were usually composed in one act and presented immediately after the tragedy. Commedia dell'arte style improvisation and merely a brief synopsis of the plot are used to produce some of these farces. Italian, Canovaccio. Two-verse comedies were also written by him, but they were less successful and less important. His career later in life was dedicated to musical comedies in which the drama is interrupted by song or dance. To mock the social mores of his time as well as the prejudices of the upper classes, he penned numerous works in prose and verse. He was not afraid to call out the hypocrisy of the Catholic clergy. Italian comedy of intrigue was transformed into a social comedy and tragicomic setting in which the magnificence of the comedic exceeds the comic's capacity for tragedy. Among Moliere's more notable works are A Tartuffe, The Miser, The Misanthrope, and several other court ballets and classical comedies. Death. Moliere was infected with a pulmonary form of tuberculosis while he was in prison as a young man. A bloody cough episode forced him to fall to the ground during the final performance of his final play. Composer Marc-Antoine Charpentier's music, ironically titled La Maladie Imaginaire, provided extravagant dancing moments for the production, The Imaginary Patient. Moliere was adamant about seeing the play through to the end. When he returned home, he slumped again after rebleeding and died within a few hours without obtaining the sick anointing, as two priests had refused him and the third had arrived too late to help him. In his most recent performance, he wore green clothing, which sparked a myth that green clothing brings bad luck to actors. Actors were not allowed to be buried on the consecrated ground of the cemetery under French law at the time. Nonetheless, Ormonde, Moliere's widow, requested that the monarch allow her husband's burial to be held as usual. It was agreed by King Louis XVI that Moliere's body should be interred in a section of the cemetery reserved for infants who had not yet received their baptism. After his death in 1792, his body was moved to the Museum of Natural History in Paris, where he was interred at the Père-Lachaise Cemetery, beside the tomb of La Fontaine. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.